I think that growing up in Silver Meadows, how that influenced my work, it influenced it in the same way that anybody growing up anywhere would have influenced something that they would make. And I think that everybody kind of needs to sort of tell their story. And so I think there's an urgency to that makes for really good artwork. One thing that's really important to remember is that, you know, there's certainly an aspect of fiction that comes into play when you're talking about making a work like this. I think that this work, for one, you know, is the first time I've ever made something that's so personal, but at the same time, it's about many more things that I've seen or heard or, you know, or happened. I had seen on a website, you know, actually it was the Yale University website that was about Robert Adams. He saw a Dorothea Lange lecture, and then in that lecture, what he had heard her say was that a photographer should photograph what exists and prevails, you know, in modern America. That's exactly what Dorothea Lange did, and that's exactly what Robert Adams did. And then I started to think about it, and I'm like, well, gee, I'm actually doing the same thing. You know, I'm not somebody you would think of as a documentary photographer, but I approach making the actual pictures sometimes with a documentary approach. I think that there's one thing that my friend Paul has always said about my work. He said that the reason your work is so unsettling is because it actually is real. You know, the places that you find like exist. They're not like fabricated, they're not made up. I have CNN on in my kitchen on this little TV, like literally 24 hours a day. It's just something I just have on. It's like white noise, and it's something that I just like. You know, I like to know what's happening in the world. I think that that bleeds into my work. You know, like there's certainly like, you know, aspects of like, you know, modern like news. Like there's, you know, there's a Sandusky street sign in my work that it's not accidentally there. You know, that's you know, planted there in some way, and I put that there specifically to talk about something, or to like maybe ask the audience, like, is he really talking about that? This particular body of work in this book, and then you can see this in the exhibit, you know, in the corner where there's, you know, there's kind of an explosion of images. Like there was, you know, like thinking about really telling a story with multiple, like there's a lot of things going on there that aren't going on in my other work. Like, for instance, one, I'm shooting with 2 or 3 cameras at the same time, you know, different film formats. There's like square pictures, there's, you know, a Contact 645 analog film camera, there's black and white film in a little 35mm camera, and so you kind of put these pictures together and they end up being this kind of like, there's a tapestry almost that happens. It's almost like putting together, you know, many different pieces, and I love the idea of like kind of recording the same scene or the same setting or the same day or the same model with different cameras and trying to like, it just adds a richness to the storytelling process. So that's something that I really like went head on and engaged in that with this body of work particularly. I think that the role that the book plays in my work is a really important one. When I'm making a new body of work, and you know, especially something like this, when there's so many different types of images, is that I basically kind of just start with, you know, a pile of pictures that I like. I have all these things come in together, and they and then you have to synthesize this. Like, how do you make sense of this? And so what I do is start making a book, because a book, when you pick up a book, you're expecting something from it. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It forces me to like kind of really think about my pictures in an order and in a sequence, and then in a story. Lewis Balt said this thing that's really important, is that photography is a profound corner that sits in between literature and film. And I think that that's really, that's a beautiful thing, and that's the power of photography right there. And I love working with that, and like, I don't want to make a movie, I don't want to like write a book, I don't really want to tell a real big story. I just simply want to hover in that zone of like that special place where photography can only be what it does. There's something about that power of suggestion and the limitations that make photography magic.